want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 484th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell, who is not here in the flesh. But he is in the flesh. He's in the flesh at home. I want to tell everybody why Tom isn't here. It's because he decided that he wants to relax at his age of 27, and so he's not willing to come into the studio unless we let him come in his pajamas. Okay, so we're starting on August 4th. There was a lot of things that happened this week, and some of it's kind of disconcerting. For people who want to get to the links for the articles, you can.
Is it August 4th? I got August 11th.
You what?
It looks to me like I'm looking at August 8/11/2022.
That's what it is.
You just said August 4th.
We start on August 4th. 8/11 is today. That's the name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It confuses me too, Tom, every time I do an addition to this. Anyway, we're starting at August 4th, which is a week ago today. And you can go down the screen on the computer and find a link to the site that Tom and I used to do this, where you can find links to the articles. You can also download a copy of the material that's at that site as a file, as a document that you can load, and that has live links in it too. So I guess we should start, Tom, shouldn't we?
Might as well.
Well, we're starting. Yeah, go ahead.
Can't dance.
Yeah, we're starting with a picture of Antonio Guterres, who, by the way, is a very famous politician, diplomat, head of the UN.
He's a Brazilian, and he's the UN Secretary General.
But he's not Brazilian. He's Portuguese.
Well, he speaks Portuguese.
He does. That's correct.
I thought he was Brazilian.
I looked it up just before the show. I thought, where in the world did he come from? And but you don't know until you look it up. This is from BBC.
I just assumed he was from Palácio do Planalto in Brazil.
I can understand that. I mean, I can understand you're assuming it. I can't understand the words you said. What do you have for a title?
UN Chief Guterres slams oil and gas firms for their grotesque greed.
Yeah. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for oil and gas companies to face special taxes. His comments come as surprising energy prices sparked by the war in Ukraine push energy profits to new highs. Mr. Guterres said it was immoral for firms to be profiting in the crisis. One company I read about had over $9 billion in profits during the first 6 months of this year, and they're sending half of that to their stockholders as.
We're going to touch base with this again before the show's out and talk about that. I mean, these guys are really taking advantage of it.
Well, and it's not just coal companies; it's gas companies, it's oil companies, it's all of them.
We got a list of. Right now I've got to mention a couple of them.
Yeah.
Well, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has disrupted access to oil and gas for Russia.
Yeah.
Worsening a global shortage of oil and gas and driving prices higher.
Yeah.
So while households are grappling with higher energy bills, companies are reaping the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are four of the biggest energy firms, Exxon, Chevron, Shell, and Total, earned nearly $50 billion in the most recent quarter.
Yeah.
Almost double what they made last year.
Yeah, and who is paying for that? And the people who are paying for it are very largely people who really don't have a lot of money.
Well,
it's a transfer.
Ultimately, all of us.
Yeah, it's a transfer of costs from everybody to a bunch of people who are very rich. Well, the very rich people can afford to transfer their costs. They don't care. They don't.
Well, they're the ones that are making it out in the first place.
Exactly. And people who are, my brother went to Burundi not long ago, and I looked it up and found that the average person in Burundi, working person in Burundi, makes $750 a year.
In a good year.
Yeah, we live in a world where 900 million people don't have access to clean fuel for cooking. And this is what's happening. Okay.
Well, because there was warned that high energy prices would have wide-ranging consequences.
Absolutely.
And we will see those consequences.
Absolutely. They
will happen.
There's no way of avoiding it. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica. We have a picture that looks like a school bus, but it isn't.
It's just a city bus.
It's a city bus.
In school bus colors.
Well, see, the thing is, they do that because this is German, and they don't have, the school buses in the United States are all yellow. So if you see a yellow bus, you think of it as a school bus. But in Germany, and I looked at this and I thought, what does that say on the bus? Well, it says Philharmonic. That could be Boston, but above Philharmonic, it says Tiergarten. So this is
a regular city bus.
What?
This is a regular city bus.
It's a regular city bus. The Tiergarten means zoo. So.
Oh, does it? Oh,
yeah? Yeah. What do you got for a title?
Solaris hits a milestone with its 2,000th electric bus.
Right.
There's a short video in this that's worth watching. It's only about a half a minute.
Yeah. In 2012, only 15 electric buses were put into service throughout Europe's urban areas. 15 buses. They are non-polluting, quiet, and very inexpensive to operate, so with falling prices of batteries, electric bus sales have boomed. Recently, Solaris signed a contract for its 2,000th electric bus.
Well, in 2021, every fourth newly registered bus in Western Europe was electric.
Yeah.
Today, electric drives make up roughly half of the company's production.
Yeah.
So things are changing.
Things are changing, and we will get to changes that are just astonishing later in this show. Okay.
Electric buses are cheaper to operate and maintain than diesel buses. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
They cost more to buy.
Not just a little bit.
Down.
Not just a little bit cheaper, a lot cheaper. And when the battery prices are going down, the cost of the
buses are coming down.
Yeah, we are at a tipping point on these things. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and I'll bet you have a title for this article too.
Oh, we got a picture here of delivery vans. We came from buses to vans.
Yep.
With our friends FedEx there on the logo.
That's right.
And it says, and I quote, by the way, this comes from Clean Technica.
Yes, indeed.
U.S. Congress considers first purchase incentive for commercial electrical vehicles.
Yes, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which, by the way, has passed the Senate but not the House, the product of the agreement of Senators Manchin and Schumer, would establish a federal tax credit for businesses to purchase electric and plug-in hybrid trucks, buses, vans, shuttles, and other heavy-duty vehicles. We will talk more about this Inflation Reduction Act because...
Well, this is a very significant piece of legislation.
Yes,
we will talk about it. We have to talk about it. And it's going to... If it passes, and it looks like it probably will, it's going to change things.
It's going to change things, but one thing that it does, and I've been reading more and more about this because this is a long piece of legislation. It is 750 pages. It's not something, from my point of view, I don't think I could read more than 3 pages of it at a time because it would drive me crazy. But there's a lot going on in it. It establishes a situation where the car companies would continue to have incentives on their cars after the 200,000th vehicle, which is an improvement from what it was. But the people who are detractors from this bill are saying that some of the people who are detractors are pointing out that the bill really kind of requires that that vehicles be made in the United States from parts that are made in the United States. So this is a big deal.
Well, a reconciliation bill is what they call it.
Yeah.
There's a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 40% nationwide by 2030. And that's coming up pretty soon.
That is, but people who
Sounds like part of the future, but it's not.
Yeah. People who are really following this, some of them are upset because 40% is not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we are up to Friday, August 5th, and we have an item here from BBC and a picture.
We got a picture of the Great Barrier Reef.
How did you know? Okay.
And this is what it says. The Great Barrier Reef sees record coral cover, but it is highly vulnerable.
Yes.
So let's explain what that means.
Yeah, coral has recovered from storms and bleaching events to record levels across much of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. That's a good thing. A survey found this, but the new coral is of a particularly vulnerable type, so the progress could quickly be undone by climate change and other
That's
threats.
the downside.
That's the downside. But there are corals that they're actually planting in the Great Barrier Reef. They're planting corals that will adapt to warmer temperatures. So they're
Well, to give you an idea what's going on,
yeah.
they call it bleaching.
Yes.
And it occurs when corals stressed by warm water temperatures expel the algae that are living within them, and it gives them their color and life.
Yes. And in order to live, they have to have that algae in them. So expelling the algae is something that they do on an emergency basis only.
So bleaching isn't the disease, it's the symptom.
That's correct. Yes, that's right. Okay, should we go on?
Well, I got a couple of notes here.
Okay.
The reef's northern and central parts have the highest amount of coral cover since monitoring began 36 years ago.
Yeah.
So something good is happening. The results demonstrate the reef can recover.
Yes.
Coral cover in the southern part of the reef has decreased.
Right.
And the reef has also been damaged by starfish.
Yes.
And also tropical cyclones. So it's under attack.
Yeah. Okay.
The UN scientific and cultural body says not enough is being done to protect the reef. You got to look at the reef as a worldwide treasure.
I think you're right about that. I think that's absolutely right.
It's in Australia, but it's not just an Australian thing.
Yes. Okay. Our next item is from CNN. We have a picture of
Kirsten Sinema,
which I looked up. It is cinema, by the way.
It is cinema.
Yeah.
I looked it up too.
Did you? Okay. Good for you.
Well, I will say her name again. Sinema says she will, quote, move forward on an economic bill.
Okay, this is kind of old news.
More about this.
Yeah, it's kind of old news, but it was very important. Senator Kirsten Sinema offered critical support for President Joe Biden's domestic agenda after party leaders agreed to change tax proposals at her request. She said she would, quote, move forward, end quote, on the economic package that has been the product of intensive negotiations for over a year. Kirsten Sinema was and she and Joe Manchin were both kind of holdouts on this bill. The Democrats needed 50 votes to do it. Actually, they needed 51, and they got the one vote from the Vice President of the United States, who's the President of the Senate, and who votes in the if there is a tie. It was a tie, 50-50. But Kyrsten Sinema had been the last Democrat to come on board, and she had things she wanted, and she asked for them and got them.
She's from Arizona.
Yes, that's correct.
I think she lives in Tucson now.
Yeah, that could be. Yep. I have a granddaughter who was living in Tucson, but she moved to Phoenix. Okay.
Well, Sinema says, and I'm quoting now, she will move forward on the economic bill.
Yes. Well, she's already voted, and the bill was passed.
This is a week old.
Yes, that's right. Okay, our next item comes from, where does it come from, Tom? It comes from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of a fella who is harvesting kelp.
So that's not lobsters, is it?
No, this is not lobsters that are hanging there. I think this is kelp. It is some form.
It's kelp, yeah.
Some form of
that's what it is.
seaweed.
You can tell kelp this is a seaweed that's got the little bubbles in it.
Yeah, and it's brown.
And it's brown, and it occurs in huge strings in
Yes.
parts of the world.
Yes. What do you have for a title?
As lobstering weakens with climate change, seaweed farming is reviving an industry.
Okay. The Maine marine economy has been almost entirely dependent on the near-shore landings of American lobster. Now, climate change has warmed Maine's coastal waters dramatically, but lobster fishers have found a new source of income, which is seaweed. And, it's surprising to me that they can sell the seaweed and make enough money to live on. But they can. And the seaweed, of course, is being sold for food.
I was just going to say, it's being primarily sold as cattle food, but it can be people food too.
Well,
and I got a sentence from the article that says exactly that.
Yeah.
I'll quote it. I first encountered seaweed salad as an ingredient in a vegetable poke bowl at a restaurant in the city in Fort Pierce, Florida. It was slightly sweet, a bit nutty, with a cold noodle-like texture.
Yes.
Since then, I've sought it out, finding it most recently in Block Island, Rhode Island.
Well, I'll tell you
Little
something.
did I know that seaweed farming is providing a lifeline to New England lobster fishers whose industry is on the verge of collapse due to climate change.
Yeah. I tell you some place that I have bought seaweed many times for over many years in the past, and that's the co-op. Here,
yeah?
Brattleboro Co-op has had it. I don't know how long they've had it, but it might have been the entire time I've lived in Brattleboro.
Well, the guy that wrote this article mentioned that the price of lobsters that day where he was $12.99 a pound.
Yes, and he said that was excessive, as I recall.
Well, lobsters thrive in cold water.
They do.
Which is less common in and around the Long Island Sound.
Yeah.
Lobsters can remain happy and healthy in waters up to 68F. After that, they hit a stress threshold.
Yes. And
so even the northern Maine lobster fisheries are facing long-term climate-driven vulnerability.
Well,
but there's hope, according to the article, seaweed farming.
Yeah? Yeah. See, speaking of food, how about this? Our next picture is purslane. And back when I was a teenager and working on a farm, this is something that I thought was just a horrible weed.
Well, they call it a weed. I guess it is a weed, but it's got flowers.
It is a weed that is quite yummy if you want to cook it properly.
Well, I'll tell you what the article says.
Okay.
Common weed may be a super plant that holds the key to drought-resistant crops.
Right. This is from phys.org, phys.org. Yale scientists described how a weed, purslane, and by the way, people grow this on purpose for food. So it's a weed if you don't want it there, but there are people who want it there. It integrates two distinct metabolic pathways to create a novel type of photosynthesis that enables it to endure drought while remaining highly productive. The paper
that's interesting. Say that again, because that's significant.
Well, it is. It integrates two distinct metabolic pathways, which is surprising by itself. But they create a novel type of photosynthesis that enables this weed to endure drought while remaining highly productive. And their paper was in the journal Science Advances. You know, we used to pull this stuff up.
This is a quote from the paper.
Okay.
This is a very rare combination of traits.
Yeah.
And it's really a kind of super plant.
Yeah.
When it could be potentially useful in endeavors such as crop engineering.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're talking about GMOs here. But
Yep.
we used to pull this stuff, and, you know, the weeds that we pulled would just get dropped in place because we were doing it kind of semi-mechanically. And it would be like hoeing. And, you know, you pull up a weed with a hoe, you don't have to carry it off to the edge of the garden to dispose of it. But these things they would root right back into the soil. And you'd be back the next day and the thing's back in the ground. So it's
troublesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was, now I know why it was able to do that. It was perplexing when it was doing it, but now I know why.
Why?
Well, because it's got a metabolic pathway that says it doesn't care about water. It's that simple.
Yep, simple. Why did I think of that?
Yeah, well, the other thing is, it is a succulent. The leaves are very thick. The stems are soft, but they're thick. And I've eaten this stuff too. And if it's prepared properly, it can be very yummy. Okay, our next
You had a plant of this stuff when I was a kid.
What's that?
When I was a kid, we had an indoor plant of this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, our next item's from Clean Technica. And I'll bet you have a title for it.
There's a picture of an F-150 Lightning in Alaska.
That's right, towing a boat.
With a trailer.
Where they're going to take it to a lake that was fed by a glacier that's now gone or something. I don't know.
Well, this comes from Clean Technica.
That's right.
And I will mention the title.
Good idea.
Ford's F-150 Lightning, now delivered to customers in all 50 states.
That's the headline. In only 2 months, Ford has delivered electric F-150 Lightning trucks to residents in all 50 states of the U.S., from the Kenai River in Alaska to Houston and even Hawaii. Wow, they have pickup trucks in Hawaii. Who'd have thought? Though sales are greatest in California and Texas, people all over are looking to electrify their truck transport.
This is a quote from one of the truck owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
This truck is a workhorse.
Yes.
They have driven more than 3,000 miles already and towed it out, carried hundreds of pounds of concrete in the frunk.
Yeah.
The front trunk.
Yeah. My recollection, Tom, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't say for sure, but you can tell me if I'm right. My recollection is that this article had a picture of an F-150 Lightning hauling a train.
I got a picture of it holding a boat, so I don't know.
Well, I know, but there were a bunch of pictures in this article, and I think one of them was a picture of the F-150 Lightning pulling a bunch of railroad cars, which, by the way, were loaded. But
I don't remember that, but
okay.
It certainly could have been because
yeah.
I
Okay.
only put up the one picture that came with the article.
Okay, we are up to.
Let's see if I got anything further. Well, we'll pass it on.
Okay.
I got a lot of stuff here, but let's pass it on.
Our
We're
next-
going to pick a vacation home in Wales.
Yeah, that's a vacation home in Wales. You'll notice the wind turbine in the background.
Interesting.
Welsh do not mind wind turbines, from what I understand. This is from CGTN Europe.
I've seen a situation in Ireland which looked virtually identical to that.
Yeah,
A house there with a big wind turbine in the back.
right. There are people who buy houses. Yeah, go ahead.
in Wales, according to the article.
Yeah. What do you have for a title?
The UK boosts renewable target as the Ukraine war drives up prices for energy.
Yes, with energy costs soaring. And by the way, I should mention here, energy costs have declined again, and the cost of oil, crude oil in Europe, fell to a point that was slightly lower than where it was before the Russians invaded Ukraine. So things are settling back a bit in terms of prices. Increased production of more cost-effective wind power is good news for consumers. It provides a potential to export excess UK energy to European countries, which are already struggling because of dependence on Russian energy supplies.
Well, this is from the article. In the UK, wind is generating 40% of the electricity per year for not just wind, renewable energies.
Yeah.
Are generating about 40% of the electricity they use.
Yes.
Dominant renewable energy source is wind, both onshore and offshore.
Yes.
So they're getting just over a fifth of their needs per year from wind.
Yeah.
And it also mentions that the UK hosts the biggest wind farm in the world,
Yes.
which is Hornsea 1, located in the North Sea.
Yes.
And they're building a second project right next to it called Hornsea 2.
Isn't that imaginative?
Well, it's got a potential of generating 1.3 gigawatts of power.
Yes. Okay, our next item is from CNN, and we have a picture of a microburst. And by the way, the microburst has nothing... Huh?
That's what it looks like to me.
Yep, the microburst really doesn't have anything directly to do with the article. I needed a picture, and that's what I put in. So I apologize for that. It is
Well, a microburst is a short, intense storm.
Yeah, it's kind of like an upside down tornado. The wind is coming down from above and blowing out in all directions.
Yep.
So what do you
wouldn't want to be there, I tell you.
What's that?
I wouldn't want to be there when it was happening.
No, and Leonardo da Vinci drew a picture of a microburst. This is something that people have known about for a long time. What do you have for title?
Why the international climate community isn't popping champagne over this U.S. energy bill, which we've already mentioned.
Yeah, while the energy bill is welcomed overseas, there is an overarching feeling that the United States is simply catching up to its allies. After years of inaction, pressure has also increased for the United States to take financial responsibility for its historic role in the crisis.
This comes from the article. The Democrats' $369 billion climate package, the largest such investment in U.S. history, could have significant implications for global greenhouse emissions and the U.S.'s standing in the world.
Yeah.
After months of uncertainty in Congress, undermining the Biden administration is after months of uncertainty in Congress undermined the Biden administration's claim that America is back.
Yes.
U.S. officials are hoping this puts them in a better position for difficult negotiations to come.
Yes. Now, our next item comes from Z News. And there it
is, a picture of the Kashmir countryside.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but Tom, but if somebody had showed me that picture and said, "Where is this?"
I'd have said Switzerland.
I wouldn't have said Switzerland, but I might have said, it's someplace in the extension of the Alps that goes down into the Balkans, or maybe it's in Austria or Hungary or someplace like that. Maybe on the western border of the Czech Republic or something. But I would not have guessed that was Kashmir. So I felt like...
I wouldn't either. Well, if you look at a map of India,
yeah,
the very, very north end is Kashmir.
Yes. It's called Kashmir and Jammu.
And Jammu. It's a state with two names.
And it is in dispute between India and Pakistan.
Well, China's also getting in the act.
Well, China always gets into the act.
I mean, it's remote from India, it's remote from Pakistan. The Kashmiris want to be left alone, and they pretty much are left alone because it's so far from everything.
I talked to an Indian who lives, I think, in Brattleboro, but nearby at any rate, and he told me that I said something about how cold it was outside a couple of winters ago, and he said, "Yeah, it's kind of like India." He came from Kashmir. Anyway, what do you have for
very far north of India.
Yeah, what do you have for a title for this?
From melting glaciers to cloudbursts, how climate change is impacting Kashmir.
Glaciers in Kashmir are melting at an unusual rate, posing a big threat to the environment as well as to people in the region, a study shows. Heat records are being shattered even as frequencies of rainfall, hailstorms, and flash floods are on the rise. And this is something that's true, all over the world, but in India, it's especially true here in this particular place. And Kashmir, by the way, is also a place where there are a large number of dams that produce a lot of electricity for India.
Well, if you look at a picture or a map of India, you'll see along its northern border, there's Nepal.
Yeah.
And there's
Bhutan.
Little small, very small kingdom. I can't even think of its name.
Bhutan.
That's the one I was looking at.
There used to be.
I was up there once. I was up in that area.
Oh, really?
Near Kathmandu.
Yeah.
And I stopped at the very improperly named Everest View Motel. There isn't a highway within 50 miles.
Why don't we have an Everest View motel here in Brattleboro? We could have it looking out on Wantastica.
The motel is actually a hotel.
Okay.
And you get there by air. And they got a little air that goes up, and that's at an angle. So as you're flying in, you're going uphill. As you're flying down, you're going downhill. And I just wanted to mention, when I was walking around the grounds, I saw the most beautiful bird I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
It's the national bird of Nepal.
Okay.
And it's just got about 17 different colors in it. It's about the size of a pheasant. I guess it is a form of pheasant, but it's very, very colorful.
Okay.
I wish we could show it on a show.
Well, I will look it up when I get home, I can tell you that. Okay, our next item is from CNN, and we have a picture of a home in the mountains. And
I guess in the mountains, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not in the United States. I think that house might be in Ireland. Does that seem possible?
No, Ireland doesn't have mountains like that.
No, I don't. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't remember. But what is
it? Could be Switzerland, could be Germany, but it's not Ireland.
Okay. I will take your word for it. Yeah. Okay.
Ireland has hills. It doesn't have mountains.
Yeah. What is the name of the article? What's the title?
How the climate bill can save you money on electricity, cars, and appliances.
With nearly $370 billion for energy and incentives, the energy bill is the largest climate investment in U.S. history. In addition to emissions reductions, there's a lot in the bill that would still change both how Americans power their homes and what kinds of vehicles they drive.
Well, the bill contains a bevy of tax incentives aimed at pushing consumers, developers, small businesses, and others toward clean energy and more efficient energy usage.
Yes.
That's what the bill is all about.
Yes. Okay, should we go on?
Might as well, can't dance.
Okay. We have a picture of Tiananmen
I'm being visited by a cat, by the way.
What's that?
I'm being visited by a cat.
By a cat. Is that your vicious attack cat that lives in your apartment?
That's the guy.
Okay.
He's my Goomba.
Okay. We have an item from the Energy Mix.
Get out of the way, cat. He wants to get in on the show.
Well, if he can say things distinctly, I don't mind. We have a picture of Tiananmen Square on a
That's what it looks like to me.
On a rare, clear day.
And that's what it says.
And what do you have for a title?
China's latest renewables plan could bridge the global 1.5 degrees C energy gap.
Yeah, China's 14th five-year plan shows the country could build enough wind and solar capacity to reach its emissions peak ahead of schedule. But continuing coal investment does raise doubts. The plan requires that renewables produce 50% of the electricity.
Well, the plan shows that the country could build enough wind and solar capacity to reach its emissions peak load ahead of schedule. But continuing coal investments raise doubts.
Yes. Okay.
So China wants to do it, but they still have coal. They want to use it.
Yes, they have the coal, and they're very reluctant to give up coal. And they're selling coal-burning power plants in other parts of the world, too.
That's kind of hypocritical, isn't it?
It seems to be, yes. Now, we have our next one, which is has a picture of Senator Markey.
That's who it looks like, yeah.
And I see, this is a 3-year-old picture. This goes back to 2019. It also has Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in it, and I don't know who else. But this is from CNN.
Is that Alexandria on the left?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Right next to Senator
Markey. It says Green New Deal.
That's right. That was a 2019 announcement that they made.
That's Senator Markey. Who's the guy on the right?
I don't know. He looks kind of mean, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looks very determined.
Well, maybe he's, I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, what do you have?
Read the title.
Okay.
Climate hawks breathe a sigh of relief after more than a decade of fighting for climate legislation.
Yeah. Senator Markey still remembers the raw anger he felt after the 2009 climate bill failed to advance in a Democrat-controlled Senate. Now, in a 50-50 Senate vote, more than a decade later, the Inflation Reduction Act passed. And by the way, that 50-50 was a tie, so the deciding vote went to the President of the Senate, who happens to be the Vice President of the United States. Yes, there you go. I've forgotten her name. I don't know. I'm zoning out on her name.
Yes, I forget her name too, but she's got a name that a vice president normally doesn't have.
Well, she's the first female vice president in the history of this country.
Well, Markey, this is a quote from Markey.
Yeah.
I was full of rage that the climate crisis was not going to be addressed.
Yeah.
I just resolved that I was going to stay in the fight. And he did.
Yes, he did. And now, he's been pushing for this climate deal, and yeah. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, I got a lot to read there, but I'm just going to pass right through it.
Okay. We have a battery. This is a Saku battery. I don't know how to pronounce it.
It looks like it looks like a harmonica.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it does look like a harmonica. Okay, this is from
It's much bigger than a harmonica.
What?
It's much bigger than a harmonica.
I don't know how big that is. I really don't.
It's bigger than a harmonica, that's for sure.
Well, I don't know. What do you have? This is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Silicon Valley startup plans a 3D printed circuit solid-state battery. Well, it plans not just a solid-state battery, but battery gigafactories.
Right. While plans in the tech world are as good as a contract written on with disappearing ink, and that's just true. A pilot battery production facility opened in Silicon Valley by startup Saku a year ago is already producing 3D printed solid-state batteries for real customers. And
that's a pilot facility. So it's working, so you're going to see more of these.
How in the world they do this, I have no idea. So the whole concept of a solid-state battery just seems so bizarre.
I got news for you. I can't figure that either.
Well,
it just doesn't make sense to me, and I got to take them at their word for it.
I think so. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next item. We're up to Tuesday, August 9th, and we have
Let me see if I can find. Oh, we got a picture there of Zaporizhzhia.
That's right. And each of those 6 white buildings with a dark roof and it looks like a chimney next to it is a
It's a reactor.
reactor for this nuclear power plant, which is the biggest in Europe. And each of those reactors has a capacity that's about 50% higher than the Vermont Yankee reactor. And Tom, this is from LAD Bible. And what do you
So
have?
there's 6 reactors there, and a tall stack, and some
Yeah.
others.
Yeah. What do you have for a title?
Russia threatens to blow up Europe's largest nuclear power plant if the Ukraine doesn't back off. They're playing hardball.
Well, no, they're not playing hardball. They're just making threats. Whether it turns into
to play
hardball.
hardball.
Huh?
They're making threats to play hardball.
They sure are. And this is one of the scariest things I have ever seen. And they seem to think, yeah, okay, yeah. If you don't like it, we'll blow it up. Russian Major General Valery Vasilyev, Vasilyev said in a since deleted statement, quote, "Here," meaning the nuclear power plant, "will either be Russian land or a desert. The nuclear plant will be either Russian or no one's." He said explosives had been set up in the plant to blow it up. Now,
well, right now the plant is running. It's technically owned by Russia because they took over ownership
they
of it.
say so. They
But
say
it's the Ukrainians that are running it.
It's Ukrainian captives who are running it. They have not been allowed out of the plant since March. And the Russians have got 500 soldiers stationed there. And the Ukrainians are pushing closer and closer and closer to this plant because the Russians are losing the war. And when the day that I saw this, I realized the Russians cannot win this war. It's not within their capabilities.
Well, for one thing, they don't know how to run the plant.
Well, not only do they not know how to run the plant, which, by the way, they built before the Soviet Union dissolved, not only don't they know how to run the plant, they are operating on the basis of a strategy of warfare that is built around Vladimir Putin's approach to life, which is to be a bully. So Vladimir Putin thinks that he can bully his way into winning a war. And I've been watching this. If you go to YouTube or whatever and you watch what's going on in this war, you'll see Ukrainian soldiers fire shoulder-fired missiles against Russian tanks that might be a mile away. The missile goes up in the air, it comes down on the tank. It doesn't hit the tank, it blows up about 3 feet short of the tank, just above its turret. And that
inflicting serious damage.
It's making all the ammunition inside the tank blow up, which means that and you see the turret of the tank go 300 yards in the air. And this is what the Ukrainians are doing. And Ukrainians designed and built a missile called the Neptune missile, and they used that thing to sink a Russian heavy cruiser. And what are the Russians doing? Well, the Ukrainians can make these things happen extremely accurately. The Russians are shooting and blowing up apartment buildings. After apartment building, after apartment building, and you see whole streets of apartment buildings that have been set on fire, have had big chunks blown out of them. They blow up churches, they blow up theaters. They
sound very strategic to me.
They blow up hospitals. This is all intended, I think, to make people afraid, and that is by definition terrorism.
Yeah, sure it is.
And, they have to be stopped, because if they aren't stopped here, they're going to be stopped someplace else closer to home, because they're just going to keep taking. And, this is a duplicate of what Hitler tried to do when he took over the western part of Czechoslovakia, took over Austria first. And, this is very, very worrying. And the Russian The people at the Kremlin have been openly talking about launching a nuclear war against the West if they aren't allowed to have what they want. This is very worrying.
It is very worrying because it's not going to work for them. It's just going to cause a lot of trouble.
Well, they said they're going to retaliate if they're pushed out of this plant. I got news. They're going to get pushed out of the plant. Well, it happens that today the G7 has demanded that they turn the plant over to Ukraine. And the UN has met today. They may still be meeting today to discuss this. So this is something that is.
Keep true, folks.
Yep. Okay. Our next item is from CNN. We're a little bit behind schedule, so we've got to catch up.
Okay. Are we ready for the picture of the Northern Lights?
We've got it right in front of everybody. I'll put
Bingo.
There you go.
Well, that's Nuke. N-U-U-K. Newark, I guess it is. Capital of Greenland.
No, Tom. Newark is in New Jersey.
Newark.
N-U-U-K. That's what they call it in New Jersey.
They do, don't they?
They do. I'm not kidding. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm being childish. I admit it.
Billionaires are funding massive treasure hunt in Greenland as the ice vanishes.
Yeah,
we've talked about this before.
Yeah, the climate crisis is melting Greenland down at an unprecedented rate, and this is an opportunity for investors and mining companies. They are searching for a trove of critical materials to power the green energy transition, and some of the world's richest people are investing. I got news for you, Tom. If Vladimir Putin were smart enough to be able to come up with a different business plan for Russia, he'd be getting that investment multiplied by 20 in Russia. Because they got lots of it.
This is very interesting because there's two schools of thought here. One of them, they want to attack Greenland and despoil it of whatever good stuff exists there. And the other one says, we want to leave it alone.
Yes, and yeah. Okay, if you don't mind, I want to go up to the next item. Do you mind?
I don't mind. You got a nice picture here of a
heat
it looks like a air conditioner, but it's not. Well, it sort of is.
Yeah, it is an air conditioner. It's also a heater. It's a heat pump.
So it works both ways.
It does, but it doesn't occupy the space of the window the way that an ordinary air conditioner would. And by the way,
since you're sick, window air conditioner is a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, and there are window heat pumps that have been around for a long time, and they look like big air conditioners. But this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
New heat pumps for old apartments.
Yeah, Gradient, based in San Francisco, has created a novel solution to the problem of heating. The unit hangs from the window sill and can be installed using hand tools. Plug into a standard 120 volt wall outlet, and you're good to go.
So that works both ways. It makes the heat hot or cold.
Yes, that's right. You can use it as a heater or an air conditioner. It's good down to zero. And it won Fast Company's 2022 World Changing Ideas Award for consumer products. And by the way, these things cost about $3,000, which sounds like a expensive.
It's like a lot.
It's a lot for an air conditioner. It's not much for a heat pump. And
yeah, okay, I hear you.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Well, I got a lot written down here, but I'm just going to skim right over it.
Okay.
A nice picture in there of an apartment house with two of these things installed.
Yeah.
And they're not very intrusive.
No, they're not. Okay.
Less so than an air conditioner.
We're up to Wednesday, August 10th, and we have a picture here which, to me, explains why Russia invaded the Ukraine in the first place.
Are we looking at a graph now?
We're looking at a graph, and the caption that I put on the graph is, please note that the baseline on this graph is 0. And this is from Clean Technica.
That's exactly what it says. Please don't.
Yeah, I will explain
Russia's
that.
natural gas pipeline exports to Europe down to almost 40-year lows. That's what that picture shows.
Yeah, that's right. And 40-year lows is before they started being getting into real trade with the West. In mid-July 2022, exports declined to 1.2 billion cubic feet per day, the lowest level in nearly 40 years. This is a big loss for Russia. The country's natural gas exports to the EU and the UK averaged 16 billion in 2019. That is down to 1.2 from 16. It was 12.4 billion in 2022 and 10.9 billion in 2020. 10.9 billion in 2021, and in July it was down to 1.
That's exactly what the picture shows.
Whoa! And you know, when you see a graph like this, if this graph showed a baseline at 80% and it went up to 100%, you'd look at this and you'd say, wow, they've lost 17% of their exports. No, this has a high of 20 and a low of 0, and they're almost to 0. And
but it's still going on.
It's still going on. And on top of
natural gas exports by pipeline to the European Union and the United Kingdom declined by almost 40% during the first 7 months of 2022.
Yeah, and
compared with 1 year ago.
On top of that, the price of natural gas is now slightly lower than it was when they started their invasion. And that means that they're only getting about 7.5% of what they were getting before the invasion. But I want to point something out here. They were at 16 billion in 2019, 12.4 billion in 2020, 10.9 billion in 2021. That's a huge reduction. That's about a third. And the reason that was happening was very likely
40%.
Because the Europeans were putting in renewable energy. And Putin was looking at this and saying, it's going to be nothing by 2030. And the Europeans were saying, yeah, it's going to be nothing by 2030 because we're not going to be burning natural gas in 2030. So I think that's where this all comes from. Should we go on, Tom, or do you have more?
I think you are. I'm kind of lost on my notes as to where we are.
Well, we are at a point. We have a Clean Technica article coming up that also has a graph. I'll put it on. And this is a graph of declines in energy production in states of the United States by energy source. So the declines are
crude oil, natural gas,
coal,
water.
Yeah, coal, crude oil, natural gas, and hydropower. And this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
U.S. energy production declined by record amounts in several states in 2020.
Yeah, well, 2020, we knew there were big declines because 2020 was the year when we got hit really hard by COVID-19. But look at this, and you'll see that only one renewable source declined in the graph.
It's down there in the bottom, it's hydropower.
In California. And that was because of the drought. Everything else here was, all of these, the declines in energy production are coal, which got hit hard.
Very significantly.
Yeah, look at Wyoming. But on the other hand, Wyoming has a lot of wind turbines being installed. This is changing people's minds. Crude oil is down, natural gas is down. And now we're trying to export as much natural gas and oil as we can because the Europeans need it. But, things are changing.
Well, U.S., did I read this? U.S. energy production declined record amounts in several states.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe you did read it. I don't think I read
what it says.
I don't think I read the synopsis. In 2020, energy production in the United States fell by record amounts compared to 2019, mostly as a result of decreased economic activity during COVID-19 pandemic. 7 states saw their largest annual energy production decline in the last 60 years. So
wow.
There you have it. And we are up to our last item, Tom.
We got a picture of some wind turbines out at sea?
At Block Island.
At Block Island.
Yeah, here.
Block Island Wind Farm.
Here in this one picture are 5 of the 7 wind turbines that the United States has out at sea. If you can imagine that. And what do you have? This is from.
And you know what irks me is it's shallow. It's ideal. They can be putting wind turbines up and down the East Coast and entirely get the country off fossil fuels.
Absolutely. And they can put them up and down the West Coast. And by the way, today, and we will talk about it next week, the Supreme Court of Ohio, I think it was, said that the approval that had been given for the wind farm that's going to be put up in Lake Erie is okay. So that's going to be done.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we'll have a picture of it in our next show. But that just happened this morning, so we couldn't do it for this show.
Interesting.
But this is
Lake Erie, huh?
Yeah. You have a picture of a wind turbine being built, which was the test turbine that they had, with Cincinnati in the background. This is from Offshore Wind. Tom, do you have a title for it?
Ørsted's first energy company to set 100% renewable electricity requirement for suppliers.
There you go.
Ørsted First Energy is the company.
Yes.
They're going to set 100% renewable energy requirement for their suppliers.
Right. All of their suppliers, the people who make the masts, the people who make the bases, the people who make the blades, all of this, everything that...
You don't do business with us unless you're renewable, baby.
Yeah. Ørsted expects all of its suppliers to use 100% renewable electricity by 2025, becoming the first energy company in the world to do so, according to the company. In 2020, Ørsted committed to using 100% renewable energy by 2025. So, Ørsted...
They're telling their friends, you want to do business with us, you got to do likewise.
That's exactly the point. And of course, there may be companies that are just able to say, no, we can't do that because it's too fast, too much. But Ørsted has got a lot of companies it can do business with, and I have a feeling that Ørsted is going to be buying its wind turbines from companies that toe the line. And who will toe the line? Well, GE might toe the line. Vestas might toe the line. Big companies might be willing to certify their wind turbines as manufactured 100% from renewable energy. So, there you've got it.
Well, they're doing this for a reason.
They are. No doubt about it. So we're at the end of the show, Tom.
I think we are. I got a word coming up that says fini.
Yes. And we are suggesting that everybody have a prodigiously splendid week. I'm going to put that up so you can verify that I actually said what it says. There it is, prodigiously splendid. And I know that Tom is waving. What's that?
I can't see that.
Well, that's okay. I'll have you take.
I'll act on faith.
Okay. Tom is waving goodbye at home. I am waving goodbye here. And for Tom, I will say, y'all come back now, you hear? Did I say it right?
Right. Yeah.
I got it right? Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.